Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Carl. I'm a recovery coach here at Capital Recovery Center. This is our coffee and conversation meeting for the day. Now we're live here is stages of recovery. Let's see here. It says recovery is a very subjective term and everyone has a different definition of what recovery means to them. Addiction can take hold quickly. Addiction is a complicated disease that is classified as both as a mental illness and chronic disease. If you are trying to reach sobriety, one thing is for sure, it doesn't happen overnight. There are stages of recovery that all addicts and alcoholics go through. The stages of recovery offer some insight into how sobriety is achieved. As with the addiction process, there is also a recovery process. Once an individual has realized they have a problem and are willing to ask for help, they have now stepped into the process of recovery. The addicted now begins a journey through four distinct stages of recovery from addiction as they learn to develop a clean and sober lifestyle. Because of the personal and intimate qualities of addiction, no two people will follow the exact same path of recovery. Even with so many influences and factors through most recovering addicts will pass through similar phases and stages on their walk from the depths of addiction to the freedom of sobriety and long-term absence. If you attend treatment just as it is progressed as a tailored program designed for you, it is reasonable to expect that your pace of recovery will depend on multiple factors. These include your degree of commitment, emotional and psychological state of mind, physical conditions, support networks, living conditions, and employment situation. For most people, recovery from substance abuse is a lengthy process in which improvements in other areas of functioning do not necessarily follow absence. So it talks about some of the stages of recovery, and it talks about the physical, the support network, the living conditions, and employment situations. And there's many factors that will benefit you in your recovery process. I know I came in recovery with no support network. I didn't have when we talk about like a sponsor and mentors and stuff like that. I didn't have a job, so I didn't have anything when I came into recovery. Like I stopped using drugs and alcohol, and then I was left with me, right? So I didn't know where to get my help from, until I went to treatment. That was the first step, putting drugs and alcohol down. Then went to treatment, and then got out. And recovery to me means active change in my attitudes, my ideas, and my behaviors, right? So we put substance down, right? And that's being absent, right? And then to change who I was, it starts the recovery process. I have to change my thinking, the way I'm behaving, the way I'm treating others, the way I treat myself. I have to live life different. And for me, I think that's where my recovery journey started, is when I started to change and grow and started to work on myself. Because for many, many years, I went to jail and I went to treatment. I stopped using drugs and alcohol a few times. And then, I didn't do no work on myself, right? I didn't change anything, right? And we talk about the people, places, and things. We have to change to stay in recovery. And I wasn't willing to do that. It was tough for me, the many, many years. I couldn't break out of my self-made prisons. I couldn't get out of my own head, and I couldn't. I didn't see the good things in life to actually put the work into live a lifestyle that I never did before. It was kind of fear. It was kind of being uncomfortable, right? Because we like to be comfortable. We don't like to step out and out of our comfort zone. It's tough to do that until I broke free of my own surroundings and my own self. I started to step out and try to change, and I started to see the good qualities and the assets and things I never knew I had, and start to actually work on myself. Then I began to change. It says, what is recovery from addiction? Says many people have different definitions regarding what recovery from addiction consists of. Some way They may view it as an event that happens when the individual stops using alcohol or drugs. For others, sobriety consists of an ongoing process that may have even begun before the individual actually quits their addiction. Other individuals may view recovery as the equivalent as serving a prison sentence, where their perspectives become negative about it. Their individuals are deprived of their favorite crutch, and the most optimistic thing they can do is to count the days. For other people, sobriety is equivalent to freedom and the chance to completely rebuild their lives. Yeah, man, and I like that. It says completely rebuild their lives, and that's what recovery means to me. Also, is completely just rebuilding everything, rebuilding my self-esteem, rebuilding my fractured personalities, rebuilding my life around me, and just changing. I had to change everything. I had to, um, I was stuck in a lot of negative things. I felt like I couldn't change, right? Because I was wrapped up in that triangle of self-obsession for many, many years. I was just stuck, and until I began to do something different and start to rebuild myself first. That's, I think, the most important thing in recovery, especially in early recovery, is like rebuilding myself, right? And like taking out the negative self-talk and taking out my negative perspective and the way I was treating myself ultimately, and still I started working on myself and started to see the good side of myself. I started to rebuild everything around me, my relationships, my surroundings, new people, places, and things. It takes work, it takes time, and it's definitely a process. And definitely it doesn't happen overnight. So let's see here. Number one, acknowledgement. It's in order to progress through all the stages of recovery, a person must first acknowledge that they even have an addiction problem to begin with. This involves a growing awareness of the situation. In some cases, realizing can come from a multitude of things, including legal matters, conversations with friends and family members, or health and employment problems. Yeah, that's a good one. Talking with others and just taking an inventory of myself and what my life has become, and um, it's true. Like conversations that I had with others, the knowledge that I had a problem. I had a lot of legal matters, right? I had a lot of jail stays and a lot of charges, and I had warrants. Um, and it says health. I didn't take care of myself, right? I wasn't eating. I wasn't going to the doctors. I wasn't getting blood work done. I was just not taking showers and hygiene, all that stuff. I was not taking care of myself. And it talks about employment problems. I wasn't willing to work. Never, I had a short period of times I worked, a few months here, a few months there. Couldn't keep a job. It just, the evidence showed that I had a problem, but I was like the last one to recognize it, right? Because I was stuck in denial and I was full of fear and self-pity and anger and frustration. A lot of things that we talk in recovery that I was full of, and I just didn't know how to break free from. It says, although the addict has come to realize an acknowledgement of the situation, this does not mean they have stopped using. However, the first stage in critical and progression with the additional stages, but just because a person realizes they have a problem doesn't mean that they want to change it. This stage merely happens when the addict phases out of denial and realizes the reality of the issue they have caused. Once they become aware of this, they move forward to sobriety. One cannot begin to solve a problem, even begin to achieve any kind of goals without acknowledging what needs to be done. One of the most important parts of the phase is the transition from mere awareness of the problem to actual acknowledgement that action is needed. Few experiences as essential to addicts at the moment when he or she shifts from denial to willingness to make a change. And it talks about, let's see here. Important parts of the phase is the transition from mere awareness of the problem to actually acknowledgement. And it says action is needed. We can, well, I can put a substance down, right? But like if I'm not willing to put the action into like change, it's just not going to work, right? And some of the things that we talk about recovery is like um, just being absent, and that's great, right? But there's a lot more to it than just putting drugs and alcohol down, right? The work, the action that needs to be and requires the need to be done, and and I didn't know that for many many years, right? I couldn't understand why I kept on staying stuck or why I kept on repeating the same vicious circle of relapsing and causing pain and suffering to myself and everybody around me. And why do I keep on getting locked up? And I was just stuck in denial, and I wasn't willing to change. I wasn't willing to put the work in. And a lot of it we talk about in recovery is fear based. You know, who am I? Who am I without drugs and alcohol? I knew who I am with drugs and alcohol. It wasn't a pretty sight, but like who really am I? And I have to figure that out through the process and working on myself and seeing the damage I cause myself and others. It's hard to take a hard look at ourselves and what the things we've done and we caused in life. And for me, I'm just talking about me here. I caused a lot of pain and chaos and conflict to others. And it's hard to address that and take a look at that. It can be tough. We talk about we have to be getting comfortable to being uncomfortable. We have to get uncomfortable to be comfortable, and it's tough. It's tough. We don't like to be stuck in our feelings and emotions, especially negative ones. We don't like that too well. It says once they become aware of this, they can move on towards sobriety. And one of the most important parts of this phase is the transition from awareness, problems, to actually acknowledgement that action is needed. So we just talked about that. That's the most important thing is the action that we take. Let's see here. It says stage 2. Consideration. This stage of recovery is a very important step in becoming willing to change the problem or at least explore and learn more about doing so. The addict becomes ready to take the first step towards full recovery, often learning more about their addiction and the impact it has had on their lives and the lives of people they love. We're just talking about that. Like we have to look at the stuff that our addiction, our lives, that the stuff that we cause to ourselves and our loved ones around us. By taking the step of learning more about their disease and its effect on others, addicts is in consideration stage make the important transition from awareness. Through time, they are gaining potentially valuable information and insights in the process. This stage bridges the gap between thought and action. Through not yet actively pursuing recovery, they are moving toward that direction through willingness and a change in our perspective. Yes, it's through yet actively pursuing recovery. So we're moving towards the direction, but we have to be, like I said, we have to put in some of the principles of open-mindedness, honesty, willingness, and we got to keep on moving forward. We have to really put the work in. And it's tough sometimes. It really is when we're looking, it says the disease effects on others, so like, how do we look at that? How do we, because I looked at it like, how am I going to fix everything? I was overwhelmed myself. Like, I was putting a lot of things in front of me and I was setting myself up for many, many years. I was setting myself up for failure. Because I was this stuff I was telling myself and the stuff I was doing to others, it was just causing a whole bunch of more unnecessary harm, and when I started to look at myself and started to see who I was and through the process of recovery and see the person I can be, others start to see me changing and growing and they start to trust me and I start to rebuild them relationships and the amends process, not just saying I'm sorry, but we talked about earlier, the action part of like not repeating the same mistakes, right? Saying I'm sorry and really meaning it and not repeating whatever I say or whatever I've done to harm that person, right? Just making amends. Um, it really frees you up from all the stuff and all the baggage that we come into recovery, because I know for me, it's very important about the relationship with myself and my relationship with others. So like, and that's what life's about. So how do I get better with self and how do I get better with others? And like my experience shows that when I use drugs and alcohol, I'm not a productive member. I am not a good son. I'm not a good brother. I'm not a good other half. I'm just not a good person. Disease of addiction takes over me. And it took me a long time to realize that. Like, I can't use any type of substance because it's just for me, it changes me, right? And like, I can't, and I learned about myself through the process of recovery of like, because I always tried different substance, right? Or combinations of substance, and I won't use this and I won't use that. Like I would maybe use it in moderation, right? So like it took me a long time to figure that out. Like I can't I have to be complete absent from any mood altering substance, and to really accept that it was tough because I been using since I was a teenager. That's all I knew for many, many years. So to like change that and to like let that go, it was hard for me, but like soon as I got over the hump of losing the desire to use, we all still have thoughts and, but like I don't have the obsession, the compulsion, and the desire to use substance today. That's been lifted from me. That's a gift of recovery that we get sometimes. And, I just had to see it for myself, right? I had to get better with self so I can get better with others. We talk also about recovery. Like, how am I going to love myself? How am I going to love you when I don't love myself? It just doesn't make sense, So like I start to change and grow and work on myself and love myself, and so I can be there for others. So stage 3, exploring recovery. It says, in this phase, we see the action begin through small steps. Here we see the person beginning to research options to escape their addiction. It says, this is the time when the addict or alcoholic come to the crucial decision to seek treatment for their issues. They may consult with family or friends in relation to their addiction to learn more about themselves or begin finding sober contacts and support groups within the community. At this point, the emotional pain in the addict has gotten so great that now they are willing to make a change. However, this can occur very slowly. It says exploring recovery. And that's what like I started doing. That's where my recovery turned for the best. Like this last time I went to treatment, right? Like I already gathered all the evidence that I needed. It just really sunk in this time, you know what I mean? And like I explored until like I joined a 12-step fellowship, right? I started to get a higher power, got my understanding, built my network of people in recovery community. Like I built a foundation. I have mentors. I have like a pastor. Like I have a lot of things to like keep me on a journey of recovery, which I never did before. So I had to explore until like some things that like I wasn't willing to do before, right? So things were suggested to me this time, and I took the chance and actually was willing to put the work in and put the action in. Like my life started to get better. Little by little, my life started to get better. I started rebuilding my life, and like I started to have like self-confidence, self-awareness, like healthy self-esteem, and I started building myself up. And that started to make me actually want to be in recovery and started to like want to change and keep pushing forward. As before, I would just give up. Things didn't go my way, I would just give up. So stage 4, early recovery. In early recovery, addicts usually enter into some type of treatment or have sought out outside therapies for their issues. It is at this point in the stage of recovery that they are stop using, learn about addiction, and begin to learn alternate coping skills of other drugs and alcohol. During early recovery, the addict is very vulnerable. They are currently navigating the journey of abandoning people, activities, and behavior that have been significant parts of their using careers. However, they have yet to fully establish the foundation of their newly sober lives. They begin to learn how to remain drug and alcohol free from the long term. This is a very fragile stage where they begin practicing new behaviors and ways of thinking. During this stage, it is not uncommon for relapse to occur, slipping back into well-known behaviors. However, it is during this time that the addict may have not fully developed the skills that they will prevent them from backsliding, so turning back to full-blown addiction is possible. The essentially facts of this stage, that is, the addict or alcoholic begin to develop new coping skills and healthy habits while repairing damaged relationships or legal matters. Yeah, we have to build new coping skills, right? We have to work on ourselves to find that like changing the people, places, and things. Them three things is very crucial if we want to rebuild our lives and to like change and grow. And it's hard to like break that. It says repairing damaged relationships. We can do all that stuff and talks about legal matters. We can handle all that stuff, but we have to see it for ourselves, and like and it talks about behaviors. I have to change my attitudes, my thinking, my behaviors. There's a lot that we need to do to change, but it's worth it in the end. We have to work on it little by little. We have to work on ourselves and start to do things different this time, because we don't get cured right in recovery. We just get better. But like we have to practice these things on a daily basis, right? We like it'd be nice if we put drugs and alcohol down. We got all the things that we want, but like it doesn't work like that. So it takes effort, it takes work, it takes action, and it can be tough. But like I said, it's definitely worth it. Like if you want to live drug free, and to live a different life and like get rid of the pain and the misery and suffering that we're suffering from, we have to do things different this time. It's definitely a must. Like we can't put down the substance and think that our behaviors and our thinking and stuff like that is going to change. It takes work, and that's different. You have to find that out for yourself. Like in recovery, it's many pathways that we can choose to do. So like you have to find out what works for you. What works for me might not work for you, vice versa. So like it's a process. We find out and talks about stages of recovery. What worked for me now might not work for me 2 years from now. So it's just I try to navigate through recovery, navigate through my life, and try to keep it simple. And then we talk about living just for today. Focus on the here and now, and take our problems or situations one by one. And life does get better. It just takes time. Let's see here. Stage 5, active recovery and maintenance. So if someone has reached this stage, they have gone through a thorough and tedious process. By this point, the addict or alcoholic has progressed, reflected, and done hard work on themselves. It is in the stage that the individual comes to realize that the sobriety rests on the necessity of continued hard work and maintenance. This requires active monitoring of their thoughts, behaviors, and practice of new coping skills, maintaining support system, altering what doesn't work for them, as well as staying alert to triggers and temptations to use. Yeah, I know it doesn't work for me today, right? Like I kind of knew then, but like now I addressed it. Now I can, if we don't know, we don't know, right? So if we don't uh, address it and work on it, and it talks about recovery and maintenance. So like we're maintaining and work on ourselves on a daily basis, right? So we work against the substance they use, right? We work against it. We don't, I don't surround myself in situations and peoples and places and things. And I don't want to say, I don't, I don't condone that kind of behavior from others either. Like, not just using drugs and alcohol, but like, the negativity, how is others treating other people, how they behaving, how they thinking, how they living, so I don't get sucked into that. So one of the key factors in this stage is learning how to prevent relapse. The individual must maintain a humble attitude towards the power of addiction and not take their absence for granted. Personal vigilance is paramount and vitally important is the continued participation in self-help groups or therapy. Additionally, one will find that this stage never ends. The addict or alcoholic will come to realize that staying sober has become a way of life and relapse can still occur if they are not careful. Staying committed to finding an enjoyable way of life from drugs and alcohol is essential. Yeah, we have to be careful. I'm very conscious and aware of my surroundings today and who do I choose to let in my circle and who do I choose to interact with. What was um, feasible before is not okay today. I let things, people, place, and things like control my life, and like I, partake in that. So like what happened, years ago in active addiction is not okay for me today in recovery. I surround myself with positive people, that are willing to help me and want me to change and grow, and they love and care for me and they support me, and the places that I choose to go to is to meetings, support groups, uh, 12-step fellowship meetings, therapy, stuff like that. I surround myself with stuff like that to like keep me on a journey of recovery. I maintain doing something for my recovery on a daily basis. And I want to stay here. We don't stop doing things for a recovery because I hear it all the time. I stopped doing this or I wasn't willing to do that. And they're back in this vicious circle of using drugs and alcohol, which I would never want to do again. But it takes work, it takes action to stay here. So that was our coffee and conversation meeting for today. And that was Stages of Recovery. My name is Paul. I'm a recovery coach here at Capital Recovery Center. Until next time, see you later.